started all that, let's get started. You can follow us on facebook.com, LinkedIn, or Twitter. A little bit about Property Vista. Property Vista is a leader in the property management software. Property Vista offers a full spectrum of management solutions to complete the entire management life cycle. And hi, this is me. I'm Leonard. I'll be your host today, and I'll be walking you through our webinar. I'm the CEO and founder of Property Vista. We are very excited to start this new webinar series. It's going to actually be dramatically enhanced coming in the new year. We'll have guest speakers and engagements, and we'll continuing this on as well. All right, let's get going. So when we talk about tenant retention, we want to talk about the whole tenant life cycle. And that covers the whole spectrum, from prospecting to leasing, to move-in, to renting, to move out, and collections and legal. So when we look at prospecting, we got to remember your ads are an extension of your image. This is where the whole retention cycle starts. This is the belief of where you understand that your brand really builds on the traditional idea of retention as well. So it starts at the very beginning. When we look at the ad to the left, the for rent sign, the very traditional, right? That sets a tone right from the very beginning. We won't go into ads today in this particular webinar, but just as an example of what not to do and what to do when we talk about the imaging of prospecting. Next comes leasing. When we look at leasing, the old way versus the new way, right? At which point do I actually sign that document? Is it on the move-in day? Is it the next day right after I applied? How is the actual lease signing impacted? Because remember, and this is a very, very important one here. Did you know renters make a subconscious decision if they will renew within the first 30 days? So that move-in prospect thing, that whole idea becomes very, very critical. How does your move-in day look like? Do you still make them come into the office, sign the paperwork, give them the keys, make them fill all sorts of documents while they have a moving truck outside waiting? The real question is why? Right? Why do we want to do it this way when the experience and the statistics show us that that move-in experience is so important? Is the unit rent ready? Can we change any of this? So when we talk about this, this is all the build-up to really understanding of how to retain a tenant. So when we talk about retention, it is about the renting experience. And there's a difference here between controllable and uncontrollable turnover. So uncontrollable turnover really means that you cannot control it at all. There is a natural cycle in everyone's life where you will move. A student will move because they graduate. As an example, you can be the best management company in the world, they will move. However, when we talk about controllable, that is fully in your control, and that also really represents your reputation and everything around it as well. So there are three main controllable reasons why people move out. Firstly, the number one most controllable reason for tenant turnover is, and you can probably guess it already, maintenance. The second most named source after tenants are not leaving because they're unhappy is communications. The third most named source of why tenants are not happy and leaving is safety. And so when we look at all this, we got to look at some hard facts here. 50% of tenants would rather use a specific building portal compared to a Facebook page. 20% of manual service requests are missed or not completed properly. 60% of tenants without a building portal feel neglected and disconnected. 25% of tenants have a lingering work order. 87% of millennials prefer to pay electronically, i.e. no checks. And then, obviously not here yet, but coming very shortly, is your Gen Z. They will not pay by paper. So let's drill down into each one of these items. What can we do to retain the tenants here? Obvious, but harder to do than to actually say, but respond to every maintenance request immediately. Complete maintenance requests within 24 hours. Can't complete them? Then communicate back to your renters. Tell them why you can't complete it within a 24-hour time span, right? Communication here is key. Provide a survey or follow-up to every single maintenance request. Close that gap, close that loop. You have to understand that just because you think the maintenance request is completed doesn't mean it's actually done satisfactory. Doesn't mean that your renter believes it's done to satisfaction. Do that survey and follow up to make sure it is completed. Finally, remove paper maintenance requests to ensure 100% compliance. This is key. Remove the paper maintenance request to ensure 100% compliance. By still doing it the traditional way, you're opening up a loop for your staff, for your renter, for things falling through the gaps. Let's look at the next one, communications. It is very important to track every single communication from your resident. Treat it like a maintenance request. Manage average response time and your satisfaction. Make sure that if your renter has a question, doesn't matter if it's maintenance related, it could be accounting related. Every communication should be tracked and responded to. Be proactive. Proactively communicate with residents about service disruption. As an example, your elevator's in service. Let them know before they show up, right? They prevent them and basically be proactive around this communication. If I'm buying groceries today and you tell me the elevator's in service and I can't use it, I won't buy my groceries today. But if I show up at the building with my 10 bags of groceries and you're telling me the elevator's broken, I'm going to be livid. Same with water shutdowns or any other service disruptions that are out there. Communicate with them. Next, celebrate your residents. Don't just communicate to them when something's wrong or when you need something from them, right? Rent arrears, any of that. Celebrate them. They're your renters. Build that community. Give birthday greetings. Welcome to the property. Follow-ups. Anniversary messages and notes. And very important, continuous surveys. This becomes very interesting. As you have various demographics all around, you want to make sure you communicate on all channels. SMS, also known as text messages, which, by the way, had its 25th anniversary 2 days ago. IVR, automated phone call and dialers. Emails, etc. Any possible communication method you can think of. Twitter, Facebook pages. Let them communicate to you with their choice of channel. What's the future hold when it comes to communication? Amazon Alexa, Google Home, all of them are very important and are going to change the way we do business. Safety. When we talk about safety, it is a key item for every renter, and it's very important. And you got to be proactive around the safety. And by being proactive, you give that feeling of safety to your renters. So you want to utilize inspections to provide a better and safer environment. You want to conduct monthly building inspections. Conduct regular health and safety inspections. Schedule and plan for proper preventive maintenance schedules. Track issues and ensure all important items are resolved. And schedule regular unit-by-unit inspections for health and safety, such as smoke detectors, window latches, whatever your requirements are for the building. Now, one thing is to schedule it, the other is to enforce it. So depending on the size of property manager you are, if you're a larger organization, this is very complicated. By doing it in the old paper and pen way, how do you know it's actually happening? And more importantly, when you do the inspections, are you actually ensuring that your staff complete all the items that they found? Is everything addressed? Is everything trackable? Next, we want to talk about residence portals. You want to provide resident portals. Most of you here already have a resident portal in place, which is great. You want to make sure, though, that it has all the items on there, right? Don't just say you have a resident portal. Really provide a resident portal. Allow them to check their balances, pay rent online, create maintenance requests, track maintenance requests. Again, communicate with you. Don't let them email you in the traditional sense if you cannot track an email. Make sure you communicate and track all communications. Let them see notices and events. Provide feedback and answer surveys. If you're not offering the full solution, your resident portal is not firing on all cylinders. It needs to go, and you want your renters in there, and you want them communicating to you, and you want to be able to really, really manage your renter. So when we look at all this, we're going to now sum it all up. So what are the top 10 items of how to retain your tenants? And again, we're going to go through them all, and then we're going to have a little time for Q&A before wrapping this up. But now comes the time where we really break it down to really your top 10. So what are the top 10 items? Number 1, review your leasing and move-in flow. Tenants make a decision around you based on the first 30 days. That experience, that move-in, that idea of me renting is so critical at this stage. You got to harness that excitement. Don't forget, when your renters come, moving is one of the most stressful things in a renter's life. Renting and finding their new home, that's excitement. So on day of move-in, you want to make sure everything's perfect. Don't make them come into the office. Don't make them sign papers. Don't make them see all the documents. Make all that happen way before then. It is very, very important to understand that your leasing and your move-in flow will help you retain your tenants in the long term. Provide an awesome resident portal. Let your customers self-serve themselves. It is very important to understand this notion, and you can try this yourself. Next time the phone rings, ask the renter if they're on a website. And if they say they're online, ask them what website they're on. And the odds are over 90% they're on your site. Why? They couldn't find the answer themselves. They had to call you. So look at it from this point of view. If the phone rings, you drop the ball. Number 3, create a preventative maintenance schedule. And this is key. You want to ensure that you're on top of all services in the property. There shouldn't be any surprises. If you're doing a good job at preventative maintenance, you should limit the amount of disruption to your residents. The building should operate seamlessly, and you should be able to proactively communicate everything with your renters. It is very important to maintain all this and track all this and stay on top of this. And here's the real key. Obviously, you're only as good as your weakest link. You got to ensure that your staff and everyone on it is trackable, and you can ensure that you're really following through on this. On a similar note, do regular inspections, unit by unit, health and safety, fire prevention. By doing that, it's not only good from your asset management perspective, right? You're ensuring that your assets are protected and well behaved and everything's working as it's expected. But also importantly, what's happening is your renters see you. They see that you're proactively engaged. They see that you're proactively doing all this for their safety, for their protection, right? You want to ensure that they understand that you are a hands-on property manager. Create a monthly e-newsletter. Most of you here already probably have one already going. Now review your content. Make sure it is about them, not about you, not necessarily even about the building. Create a community. Find out what's going on in the area, right? Give some building updates. Create some activity, excitement. Make them actually read your newsletter. Because if they're not reading it, the idea and the odds are your content isn't great. So either review the content and make sure people are reviewing it and reading it. Now we get to some more fun stuff. Proactively communicate. And this is key. Send text messages, send emails, send auto dialers, right? Be proactive about this. Elevators are being serviced, let them know. This is really the important part here. Again, you want to ensure that you are proactively sending them the information. By the way, by you sending them the information before something happens or before they find out that the elevator is broken, you are just right now preventing 100 phone calls coming into your office. You want to be proactive here. Create internal SLAs, service level agreements for maintenance response times. So we talked about responding to maintenance requests in a timely fashion. But really the question is, what is the average response time? What is the average completion time? Are you tracking this? Are you really tracking this? Have you set some guidelines for yourself, your company, your staff to ensure that you set some SLAs that can be achievable? And what if they aren't achieved? How are you handling this? You want to create some internal SLAs really to help you manage all the expectations. You can even, some companies go as far as sharing those with their tenants, right? So you may want to set 2 service level agreements, one for internal, one for external, right? So you can communicate externally and then escalate accordingly. You want to create surveys. After every single major milestone, maintenance request, renewals, whatever it is that you think is a major milestone in the lease and the tenancy, create a survey. How are we doing? Did we do it correctly? Did we finish the maintenance request? Were you happy with it? On the renewals, are you renewing because you have to and you're just lazy to move? Or are you renewing because you love us, right? The building's in great shape. We're doing a great job, right? Find out, because you can only act on the information if you know. And if you don't know, there's no way you can improve. Surveys are very, very critical here. Number 9, celebrate your residents. Again, the real idea here is you got to celebrate them. They're not just there to pay the rent check. They're there. You want to create a community. They deserve it. Celebrate them. Find the points. You can do it low budget, but ensure you celebrate them so you know exactly and they know that you're real people and you care. And now we come to the final point on the top 10 list. And that is probably the number 1 point to ensure and help you to retain your tenants. Go paperless. Yes, go paperless. Why would you go paperless? Or how do you go paperless? Those are 2 different questions. But if you really want to retain your tenants in the long term, you got to provide the best possible service. And to ensure that you can provide the best possible service, you got to go paperless, not just on maintenance requests, on everything you do, on all interactions with your renters. I want to give a point story here. Some of you may remember this, but when the airlines, you used to buy food and drinks on an airline, they used to pay by cash. A couple of years ago, they switched over. And they switched over to credit cards only. And a lot of people, I used to fly a lot at that time, a lot of people were angry. Well, you're not going to take my money? Well, I don't understand. Here's my cash. No, we can't do it. I'm really sorry. Think of it as in the same sense as going paperless. Okay? Now you have to also think, why did the airlines do it? First of all, today you will fly. You won't even blink twice. You know you got to give your credit card to buy a drink on an airline, right? They've conditioned you. But the real history of why the airlines have done this is to actually service all the people on the plane better. Because the truth was, the people at the end of the plane, they weren't serviced. The plane would land before they would even get drinks because they were handling change and all sorts of other information. They now process more payments. They are faster. They're more efficient. The same thing goes true for going paperless. By going paperless, you're really ensuring that you actually know your average response times. You know 100% how you're handling them. And by the way, the first time you go paperless, you may be surprised you're not doing as well as you thought you did. Why? Because if you remember the slide earlier where 25% of maintenance requests are missed, forgotten, lost, well, they can't hide once you go paperless because it's going to be fully electronic. And this is really the key item here. And on that note, we want to open this up a little bit for Q&A. We got 10 minutes left before the end of this webinar. And we'll want to see if there are any questions. So one of the big questions that came here, I can read right now. How do you overcome the tenant who doesn't want to do things on a computer? That's an excellent question. So when we look at the demographic change, first of all, it's a wrong assumption to believe that you still have renters that aren't online, that have no smartphone, that have no internet. But yes, they do exist, right? It's, again, you want to manage by exception in this particular case. And you got to be very, very smart, because if you make too many exceptions, you're opening up the floodgates and nothing changes. So you want to really maintain the paperless philosophy in this particular case. And how would you do this? You would do this in a very simple way. If someone first of all, you would train them and guide them, right? By training them and guiding them, you would say, let us sign you up. Let us help you get into your portal, right? And explain to them, by going into the portal, we service you better. By the way, why do we service you better? Because when the maintenance request comes in, it goes to a whole team of maintenance people, right? It doesn't just go to the one person sitting in the office, and if they're not there, everything's delayed. So really the idea is you want to train them to get in. You will find the occasional tenant that will absolutely refuse. In that case, still stay paperless. Ensure that you don't have a maintenance request that's a paper-filled one. Fill it out for them, put it online. If you still require paper of any nature, you scan it in and you have it online. But really, by having a paper maintenance request there, you're really opening up the door, and it's a bad door to open. Our recommendation stays strong, says do not fill out a paper maintenance request. Fill it out for them online, whatever system you have, print it out, have them sign the printed version. But again, it originated from an online system that can now be tracked, so you can really see what is the average response time, how do you really get in and out, and how do you service them better. On this note, unless there's any other further questions, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Again, as mentioned earlier, we are starting this new webinar series. Join us in January. We're going to announce the topic very shortly. We're going to start having panels, and we're going to expand this whole webinar series. I want to thank you all for your time, and hope you learned something and apply what you learned today as well. And if we don't speak to you until the next year, a happy new year, and thank you very much.